All right, so we end with this. Africa being the home of the world's largest youth population, yet too often young people remain underrepresented in decision making and development. So that's why the Youth Day of Service, YDoS 2025, now in its sixth edition, is calling on young Africans to take their action into their communities throughout the month of August under the theme of From Ideas to Impact. The campaign is led by Leap Africa in partnership with Dow and others and has already mobilized thousands of youth-led service projects across the continent. Speaking to us now about this is Amabelle Nwakanma, Director of Programs and Partnerships at Leap Africa. Very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us, Amabelle. Can you first just start by telling us about Leap Africa and what it does and how it came about?
Right. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very pleased to be here. My name is, like you said, my name is Amabelle Nwakanma. I am Director of Programs and Partnerships at Leap Africa. And Leap Africa is a youth leadership development organization based out of Nigeria, but doing projects and interventions and programs across the continent. And really, in a snapshot statement, our reason for being is youth leadership. We believe that the future of our continent is dependent and contingent on the leadership, the skills, the capacity of the young people we have who are our greatest resource, and their critical mass as well. So we exist to bridge interventions along 5 programmatic areas: employability, entrepreneurship, education, active citizenship, and health and well-being. And our Youth Day of Service sits under our active citizenship pillar, which focuses on catalyzing and optimizing and galvanizing young people to take up space and lead community development initiatives that are targeted at bridging the SDG gaps in Africa.
And, as we were speaking about this, my mind cast back to one of the two programs you spoke about, Nigeria, that I have great admiration for its establishment and how it's been run, Yaga as well as Not Too Young to Lead. So taking these two programs as examples on what they've achieved and what you are trying to build on. Can you just tell us about where there are gaps and what can be done to overcome these challenges?
So the big gaps is, like, young people, although we talk so heavily about having the youngest population in the world, the fact that we have over 70% young people in Africa, and we have all these wicked problems, quote unquote, and the challenges that we face as a continent, you don't see the commensurate investment and inclusion of young people, especially when it comes to civic participation and civic activism. So you have a few exceptions to the cases, but the majority of young people are not fully empowered and resourced and skilled and enabled to lead, and they have the capacity to do so. That's what we all say. That's what we all believe. That's what we all know to be true. They're usually in their productive prime. They are energetic, they're creative, they're entrepreneurial, but a lot of the time they're very disempowered. So movements like you've mentioned, Yaga, Not Too Young to Lead, Leap Africa, we come to, and these are partners, by the way, of Leap Africa, we come together to say we need to be spearheading that inclusion, to say that they should take up space, they should be empowered, and they should be resourced to bring their ideas to life and lead.
And again, for instance, I'll mention Samson Itodo, somebody who I know is a colleague, is a brother who I have great admiration and respect for. What he has done in terms of investing in himself, but investing in other young leaders, I've always found as very progressive, because I've been and moderated many discussions, particularly with young people. There's an infantilizing of young people and treated as a cosmetic exercise in some cases, when you say, right, we're bringing them onto the table. But if you look at allocation of time to articulate ideas, bring ideas to the table and actually implement them, they're often given the short end of the stick.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And that's what we're trying to bridge at Leap Africa through Youth Day of Service and other projects, which is, how do we not give them the short end of the stick? How do they get the long end of the stick? How do we start resourcing and investing in them early? How do we support their endeavors, support their agency, support their capacity and their leadership, and then create those spaces with them, for them, so that they can be very transformative and become change agents and lead and do more things that we expect them to do, so that the continent is shifting and moving the needle, especially when it comes to the sustainable development goals.
Speaking about the SDGs, there's this notion of giving young people a voice when we know they already have it, and they're the ones who actually are experiencing the challenges, but who are also, whose fate is in their hands once they've been empowered, capacitated to be at the forefront of, resolving their own problems. Do we need a mind shift as well in that thinking that we need to give young people a voice? And how do we ensure that young people take those platforms without seeking permission from their so-called elders or superiors in the political, civic society sphere, etc., etc.?
And I think you hit the nail on the head, which is the mindset shift. Too often, when you speak to a lot of young people, and I'm talking not just about the urban young people who may have more exposure, but I'm talking about young people across Africa who are in rural and peri-urban areas, there is a sense of, it's almost like a defeated mindset sometimes, like the sense of things are happening to them, they don't have the power to make such a change or the change that they wish to see, so they just kind of coast through life thinking, there's nothing I can do, because that empowerment hasn't really happened. And so again, our reason for being at Leap Africa and through this youth service is to say, we know that you can do. We don't only want to tell you that you can do, we want to support you to do by resourcing you, by helping you build the skills and the capacities, and then by supporting you to be in rooms, creating the opportunities to use your voice. Because you're right, they do have their voices. They're not, they can speak. But where are those voices being amplified? That's where you and me and our stakeholders and ecosystem actors come to play, to say, let's create spaces where they come in, they can lead, they can spearhead, they can speak, and it's amplified and platformed.
And what kind of ideas are they coming up with, Amabelle, to, you know, shift the playing field, to move the tectonic plates and own the space?
So YDoS service is SDG focused, which means that we're saying whatever SDG is relevant to you in your community where you are, we want to support you to take action on it. So from waste recycling, upcycling, to planting of trees in coastal areas, to poverty reduction interventions, to menstrual hygiene, SRHR support. There's a plethora and a myriad of different interventions and different projects that these young people take up. The minute they know that they'll be supported, that they can be resourced, that they can be encouraged, they are more than willing. They actually want to do something. A lot of times they're just not empowered to do so. So you're seeing them actually identifying what the problem is in their communities and saying, well, I want to do something about this. And we come in and partner with them on it.
And briefly, outside of your partnerships, your organizations, your call to action to communities, for instance, what can you and I do outside of our own, civic activism space, but as individuals in our communities, what can we do to support these efforts?
Well, speak about it, encourage young people to go register, to volunteer, or to lead a project, because this is really a volunteer campaign to say, use your time and effort to transform your communities. So we can share about it. We can also resource them. We can also even lead projects ourselves or volunteer. One of the things that we do at Leap Africa is we get all our staff to volunteer in the season, and even throughout the year. We get our funders. So like Dow, you mentioned, they always join us for a volunteer specific project around the continent because they have offices around the continent. We have partners who join us, different corporate partners, government partners, third sector partners. So we're all volunteering alongside these young people and supporting the work that's happening. So these are ways that we can contribute. And sometimes people are resourcing. They're saying, I want to fund, I want to support a change maker with a project. I will handle that, this for one project lead, and they'll support that way. So there are different ways we can join in.
Well, Amabelle, you have my commitment, my pledge that I will volunteer to moderate whatever discussion you have wherever around these issues. It
That's
is
awesome.
part of my efforts as well. I'm an SDG 3 activist as well, but also just in terms of adolescent representation and rights, it's something I'm very passionate about. So that's why I can talk about Yaga and Not Too Young to Lead, because I've done work with them and I think it's an amazing work that they do. Thank you so much, Amabelle, and best of luck to you and your co-hosts. Amabelle Nwakanma is Director of Programs and Partnership at Leap Africa, speaking about the 2025 YDoS Service Campaign. That's it from Africa World Hour this Friday. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, your listening and viewing here on Channel Africa. And of course, happy Women's Day for tomorrow. Until the next time, goodbye.
When the sun goes down, we don't stop the talk. Channel Africa, the best nighttime radio.